I'd been warned that Nigeria would be nothing like any of the other countries I've lived in Africa. And that proved to be true. Nigeria is nothing like the countries I'd lived in Southern Africa. It's totally different. It's not necessarily a bad thing. There were joys and frustrations to living in Port Harcourt in Nigeria. We made the best of it and we enjoyed our year there. I'll start with some of the joys of living in Nigeria. I have so much respect for Nigerian people. Everyone is hustling. Everyone is trying to make a living. No one is sitting back and waiting for the world to give them a living or for someone to give them a handout. Everyone is always busy, selling something, doing jobs and services. No one just sits on their hands. And I have great respect for the people, and the work ethic is fantastic amongst Nigerian people. Nigerians are also beautifully outgoing people, incredibly friendly, and just really lovely people. They are very loud. I think everyone would say the same. But when you see Nigerians talking, particularly when you first get there, you think that they're probably having an argument, but you just realise that's just the way people talk. They're basically just screaming in each other's faces, but that's just a normal dialogue in a professional business environment. You get used to it. I should have known things were going to be a little bit different from the very moment we landed in Lagos in the first place, and the madness of the airport and having to basically bribe my way through immigration and customs. Not that we had anything we shouldn't have had, but just to get the job done. And it's just so crowded and everyone's trying to help you. And of course, they're offering a service, and you realise as you've lived there for a little while longer that people are hustling. They're trying to make money. So they want to carry your bags, they want to help you pack, they want to do everything for you. And when we arrived in Lagos, of course, our plane was delayed to Port Harcourt. I phoned up the person of my new employer who was supposed to assist me with all aspects of my travel. And she told me it was too very early and she was still in bed and I should call her back later. So me and my wife and our son, Michael, were just sat around in the airport for hours waiting for her to get up and to call us back. But again, learn those lessons. And eventually we got to Port Harcourt. And again, another red flag was the fact that we were picked up by an armed convoy of police. And we were driven back with 2 police trucks in front of us and 2 behind us. Now, I knew there'd be security issues, and I knew Nigeria doesn't have the same level of personal safety as perhaps Botswana, Malawi or Zambia. But this was a little bit more than I expected. Part of my contract was that I had my own driver, which I thought was great. That just sounds like a real perk. But the reality was my driver was almost like my security guard. And everywhere I went with Samson. Samson drove me around. He was a fantastic bloke. Became very close to my wife and I and to Michael. Often he'd help look after Michael. His role was far beyond just being our driver. He almost became like the additional member of our family. And Samson is actually one of the highlights of my time in Nigeria. Absolutely tremendous guy. But it was about 6 months before I plucked up the courage to start driving myself around. I had a car and I had a driver. But eventually I just thought I may as well drive myself, and then if we're going shopping or going to a restaurant or something, we had the convenience of not always having to call for Samson to come and drive us around because he didn't live that close to us. Some more red flags were raised when I reported for my job. I'd accepted a job where I'd be paid tax-free income in US dollars. That was the deal. That was on the piece of paper. That was the contract. But when I arrived, I was called in by the owner of the school and the business manager, and it was explained to me that they couldn't legally pay me my whole salary in US dollars, despite what my contract said. And I'd receive 50% in US dollars and 50% in Naira. And of course, the Naira was subject to fluctuations, and my salary would change from month to month. I tried to put forward the cases about the contract, but they were like, this is Nigeria and that's the way it is. And what could I do? We'd arrived, I didn't have another job to go to, so I had to bite my lip and get on with it. The accommodation they put us in, which was all part of the package, was okay. It was a nice enough apartment. The only issue was we were guaranteed electricity. We were guaranteed electricity around the clock because there was a generator. And there was a generator which served all of the apartments in our block. However, it was only actually put on during certain hours of the day. And during daylight hours, there was no generator. So my wife and Michael would be at home for hours upon end and couldn't do anything because they had no power. Eventually, we bought an inverter just so we get a little bit of power for the TV and microwave oven, so they could actually have some form of regular life. But hey, that was really bad. And I know it's everyday life for millions of Nigerians, but we were promised something different. So it's not like me being entitled or anything. I think it was part of my contract, so I did expect it. School was great at first. I really had a brilliant team of teachers, and yeah, we all got on really well, and they really did trust in me, and I did do a lot of work with them on professional development and developing their teaching and learning, and I think I was really appreciated by my teaching staff, but less so by the owner of the school. And as time went on, yeah, the differences between us began to grow and grow. She wanted to run the school herself. She'd employed me to run the school, and yeah, that left us at loggerheads so often, and nearly always over the superficial things which I'm like, it doesn't really matter, but it became so important to her. And one classic example I can think of is when I didn't ask my teenage students to wear green shirts for St. Patrick's Day, which apparently was part of the tradition of the Norwegian International School. And I'm like, but there's no point wearing green to celebrate St. Patrick's Day if it's culturally irrelevant and you have no idea what it's about. And yeah, we just had to agree to differ, or she just had to pull rank on me, and she did that continually. So I couldn't continue to work for her. That was too much. But another positive was the fact that Deborah got to train to be a makeup artist. She joined a class with a school of JoJo's Touch, and she became pretty damn good. And she is like now a qualified makeup artist, and some of her classmates Nigerians who stayed have gone on to work in Nollywood and work with some of the celebrities who would be known across Nigeria and across the African continent. So it was a really good school, and that was a real kind of good life skill that she got there. And it gave Deborah a chance to get to know a lot more people and have her own life outside of just my school life. And we did find a few nice places to go for our socialising. Nearly every weekend we'd head down to the Boys Club of Nigeria, Beacon, which was a lovely little enclosed restaurant and bar with a swimming pool, and we spent most of our weekends in that swimming pool or lazing around it, cocktail or beer in hand. And another place we used to love was Asia Town, which was a huge all-purpose Asian restaurant, and the owner there, George, was a fantastic lad, and we used to go there pretty regularly on a Sunday for Sunday lunch, usually after church. Eventually we kind of realised that staying in Nigeria was no longer sustainable, and mainly due to the issues I had at work and some of our insecurities around the security situation. With Deborah being black, she blended in when she went to the market, things like that, but with Michael being mixed race, he kind of stood out a little bit, and meant that we kind of got a little bit paranoid about whether he particularly would be a target for kidnappers. Now, I'm an educator, I'm not a target for kidnappers per se, however, I'm a white guy and you can be targeted. I probably look like I've got a lot more money than I have, and there may be an assumption I worked in the oil and gas industry, particularly as we lived in River State, and that was a predominant industry. So we were a little bit paranoid of that, but to be honest, mostly it was because of the woman who owned the school, and I think she was probably just running some money laundering operation. I don't think there was any real commitment to education on her behalf or on behalf of her partners. The school was a huge white elephant. Some really good elements, I will stress, with the teachers, and some really good students and parents, but the governing body of the school, I'm sure they were lining their pockets from somewhere. Can't be certain, and I have to say allegedly, of course, because I'm not going to make any allegations on social media. So all in all, it was a little bit of a mixed bag working in Nigeria. In the end, we had to negotiate our way out, and we left after a year. So I served a year as the head of secondary at school, and then we headed off, and the next port of call was Shanghai in China. So if you're interested in my international life and my international work and my family lifestyle and living around the world, then drop us a follow and let me know what you'd like me to talk about in the comments. See you soon.